Hello everyone, this is Huming from OpenText Global Technical Support Team. Welcome to today's PPM sharing. In today's sharing, I will introduce how to configure simple workflow. Let us start with the main components in PPM workflow. Here is the list of workflow components. They are steps, transitions, security, and notification. Steps are events linked to form a complete workflow. The basic types of workflow steps include decision, the activities that are performed manually outside of PPM. Execution, the actions that are automated through PPM. And condition, the logic steps that allow the workflow to proceed in special condition. And sub-workflow, that is a unit that contains a series of steps. Please note each workflow must have a begin step and a close step. The begin step usually is a decision step, and the close step is an execution workflow that marks the request as completed. Transitions are rules that logically connect workflow steps, and workflow security determines who has permission to execute or choose a result for a workflow step. Notifications are email alerts sent out as specific workflow steps. Here's the overall process on how to create a workflow. You start by creating a workflow definition, and then you can choose workflow steps needed and drop them to the workflow. And you configure the steps and transitions, set the begin and close steps, and finally verify and enable the workflow. All workflows are created through the workbench. You can open the workbench, go to the configuration tab, and click workflow icon. And then you can use new workflow button to create a new workflow. This is where you can set basic workflow information like name, scope, description, etc. Reference code is auto-populated, and the default workflow scope will be requests. The first step is none at this point and can be defined after more steps are being added into the workflow. After filling up the basic workflow information, the next step is to add workflow steps. The Windows Step Sources window is automatically displayed once a workflow is opened and it cannot be closed. In that window, it lists a library of defined workflow source steps. You can, of course, also configure your own step sources as needed. Choose a step there and drag it into Layout tab to create a specific instance of the step, and the Workflow Step Configuration window will appear. You can then set the properties following the steps in the online help. You can also configure the step validation. To do so, right-click the step icon and select Edit Source. Then you use the Open button to check and modify the validation values. Next, you will need to define who can see or take actions on this workflow step by setting workflow step security. You can go to Security tab and click New button, and then you select one of the listed options. For example, if you select Enter a security group name, the next step would be to choose a security group from the available security group table. It is also possible to use token to define dynamic workflow step security as well. The email notification could be set under Notification tab. You click New button and define the properties like description, trigger, recipients, and edit the message if desired. You can also change the notification templates in the Workbench Configuration tab. Transitions are added to a workflow after a workflow step is dragged and dropped from the Workflow Step Source window to the Layout tab in the Workflow window. You can add a transition by right-clicking a workflow step icon and choose Add Transition. For example, you can add a transition for Request Analysis step and set it to move to Request Assigned step. In the Define Transition window, you may set specific result equals to code change. Another transition can be added and linked to a close step with the expected result set to cancel. This means when the selected value of the request analysis is code change, it goes to the step request assigned. And when the result analysis returns cancel, it goes to the close step. Workflow steps are numbered consecutively as they are added to the workflow. The step sequence allows configuration of a logical presentation of the steps. You can use the up and down arrow button to change the sequence. Before completing the workflow, make sure the begin and close steps are configured. By default, the first step added to the workflow is defined as the begin step. It could be changed on the workflow definition window. And for each workflow, at least one close step is required. If the workflow has more than one path, each path must have a close step. There are several types of close steps. Close immediate success and close immediate failure do not require user actions, while for close manual success, user actions are required. After setting all the steps and transitions, save it and click the Verify button to check for logical errors such as no transitions or missing step security, and fix them. Once verification passes, you can enable the workflow and test it. That is all I wanted to share today. Thank you very much for watching, and thank you for your interest in OpenText solutions.